And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I'm joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good.
It's good. So the first topic is this. A lot of noise has been talked about Aaron Judge and chasing the home run record and stuff like that. you know, and a lot of people say, is he going to do it? Here's my question to you, LaMarr. Whenever you're chasing, say, history or chasing a record, do you think it's tougher to actually, get the milestone overall, or do you think it's tougher when you're so close that that's never becomes the toughest?
I think it's tougher to get the once you get within one. I think it start getting tougher. Start feeling the pressure, and come in that actually you want to try to do it at home in front of the home fans, or you have to do it on the road because tonight is the Yankees' last home game. Not the last home game for the season, I don't believe, but the last home game before they go to Toronto tomorrow. So you're probably feeling that pressure to get it. Probably feeling that pressure to get it done at home. You want to do it in front of your home fans, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's always a lot of pressure, especially playing in New York for that matter and stuff. But I think he gets it. It would be clever to do it on Sunday night, you
Yeah.
know, considering it's under the lights, it's at Yankee Stadium. Like that would be an iconic time to do it. And there have been a lot of moments that happen in the Yankees' history that have happened in prime time, to say the least. So it's hard to say. Looking forward to the game tonight, especially, and we'll get more into that later on. But here's topic number two. And this has come up recently, and everyone's saying Judge or Ohtani for 2022 AL MVP.
Yeah, I know everybody's saying it, but I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. Got to be Judge. Teams in first place going to the playoffs. 60 about to hit 60 plus homers, triple crown possible winner. I mean, Atani doing some fantastic stuff pitching and hitting, but team ain't played a meaningful game since April. So that I mean, it's most valuable player, and he's a valuable player, but the Angels ain't winning. And you got
Yeah,
this guy about to hit a triple crown. Triple crown is hard to do. Hitting 60 plus home runs is hard to do. And nobody hit 60 home runs. And what? When the last
it's
time
been a
somebody hit 60
long
home runs?
time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a no brainer to me. I don't know, but other people think they try to, yeah, he pitched and hit, and that's amazing. But team is losing, dude. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean let's put it this way: whenever you think of valuable, it's who's valuable to the team, regardless of like the situation. Like overall, if this player's not on this team, because let's put it this way, the Yankees were on such a cold streak at one point. I don't even think that they remember that cold streak right now with all that's developing. But who knows? But I mean, it is New York. But I think that Judge gets it too. I think he should. It's overall how valuable are you, and he has a chance to really do something special that really hasn't been done in quite some time. And if he were, it just really goes back to how really talented he is as an individual and as a player. And I think, going forward, that's how the award should be dictated by the winner is who was the most valuable. And now looking back on it, it really doesn't look right if you're the MVP, but your team lost or is not in the playoffs because, that'd be kind of awkward. But, I get why people make the case for Ohtani, a two-way player that, isn't really your average Major League Baseball player, that's for sure. But in the long run, he's still doing something remarkable that not a lot of baseball players can do. So the logic's there, but if it were me, I'd probably go with Aaron Judge just because of how valuable he is to the Yankees and just that storyline from start to finish. How he arbitration with the Yankees, and in a bargain price, probably to say the least, for like 17 million, and then it's just like now you transform to the rest of the season and see what he's done. The guy's gonna get a payday come this offseason as a free agent, whether he stays with the Yankees or not. But he's definitely has proven and he's earned that and
Yeah.
stuff. Now on to topic number three, and this one's a little bit even more special because it's Albert Pujols. He in fact did hit his 700th home run in the least in LaMarr. First off, that's I wanted to talk about the accomplishment in and of its own. You talk about all the great baseball players to ever play the game of baseball, Major League Baseball, that is, that have either hit or pitched. And I say it because there's a lot on great both sides, but then whenever you look at all the great hitters that have been in the league and that have come and gone and everything, you look at a select few that have hit 700 home runs. What does that really say about that specific player in general?
Longevity, play a long time and be consistent. He got a couple down here with the Angels, but he kept plugging away and working hard. Got 700 home runs now. Now he can retire and wait for his place in the Hall of Fame.
It's funny though because Albert Pujols is a class act kind of guy, and I know that whenever he hit it and everything, everybody started asking him about if he wants the ball, and he was just like, I don't really care if I get it. If the fan wants to give it back, that's great. If not, that's also great. But his answer was so humbling because he was like, at least I have my bat, the uniforms, all the stuff that I actually wore and possessed. Yeah. On the field. And to be honest with you, now thinking of it, that's even better. The ball's great, but actually having the stuff that you wore for that game and stuff in your possession, nobody could take that away from you. I look at it and think that, 700 career home runs, that is a milestone, and the thing is Albert Pujols had a batting stance and a sort of power leverage that you did not see many baseball players have. And I think that that's what has attributed to a lot of his success and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very successful player. He's played well, got that big contract from the Angels, and everybody gave him flack because he had some down years, but I just give him credit. He didn't buy into all the naysayers, just kept playing, and look where he's at now.
Yeah, there's times where I've actually have watched YouTube videos of how Albert's batting stance is, and whenever you see it and he explains why he does the stance he does, you begin to understand why he's been so effective at the plate. It's not even funny, or I should say effective, but it's crazy. If you look at the career of Albert Pujols and what he's done, he's to say the least, he has traumatized some organizations in the National League as well as the American League, but more probably in the National League because that's where he had a boatload of success, winning a few World Series championships with the St. Louis Cardinals, to say the least. But I also think, it's a fitting storyline. Yadi's supposed to go out, Pujols is too. I think, it's a little bit at rest that, he hit number 700. But I actually want to get more into about how he hit it because for those that didn't know, Pujols doesn't play every single day. In fact, he has been hitting exclusively against left-handed pitching. So, talk about a guy with a goal and an objective to get it done. There's a fair amount of left-handed pitchers in Major League Baseball, but not a lot. But whenever you're tasked or say just exclusively facing a lefty versus a righty, do you think how much harder does that actually make it out to be to reach? Because you could go 2 series without actually seeing a pitcher.
Yeah, it goes to a scouting report and just longevity in the game, familiar with pitchers, So I got all these scouting reports and numbers and how well he hit against the pitcher. You just look it over and watch the game. See what he's throwing, see what's getting over the plate, what he having trouble with.
Yes, indeed. It's crazy. It just seems like anytime Albert is set out to do something, he somehow magically gets it. But he's overall been a class act to Major League Baseball. So I'm happy for Pujols to get career number 700 home run. That means a lot to him and stuff. And he's been one of the most dynamic players in all of Major League Baseball. And if there is a hitter in current day or present day that should deserve to be in the 700 home run club, it is Albert Pujols himself. Now, we're going to talk about our last topic, which is some college football, because we got to just talk about college football. I mean, it's happening. And this week, I got a chance to really see some great games, to say the least, LaMarr. I know you've probably seen most West Coast games. I don't know if you have had the ability to see some East Coast, but I have watched some very important games, and I would say some have shocked me and some haven't. I'll just get the Penn State and Central Michigan game out of the way first. It did not shock me that Central Michigan kind of did what they did early on, but I know Penn State's a second half football team, and they were able to, I believe they were able to cover the spread, and they won. So that's always a good thing, and it's going to be good because this week they have a very good matchup with Northwestern at 3:30 in the afternoon, and it's home. So that's always a good thing. And then there were two games that actually really surprised me, and one of them was Maryland and Michigan, because in I want to get something across to fans here, because there's a lot of times, even whenever you look at like a Penn State and a Central Michigan, or a Penn State like App State game, you always think, oh, Penn State should win this game. But it often receives the stereotype that, like, well, the opposing team doesn't really have no one that's Division I worthy, where there are some of these FCS schools that do have Division I quarterbacks. It's just they just chose to go where they're playing versus a Division I school to, really might have little to no chance of playing. But it shocked me how low the scoring was, but it's also the simple fact that, to me, that was also a trap game for Michigan. Coming off hot with 3 straight non-conference games, really destroying their opponents to, like, really just blatantly be honest and stuff. But then they come into a Big Ten matchup against Maryland, and, it's close. Michigan only won by like 4 points, I believe. It was 17-13 or so, I think. And I think it goes to show that maybe in Big Ten play, it's not going to be as easy, for Maryland to have given Michigan a battle like that. But Maryland's coming along in a way that not a lot of people projected. Mike Locksley's starting to find a way to keep some of those very good recruits in the DMV area in Maryland. So there's that. But the biggest surprise was Michigan State. I don't know how this happens, but they get shut out at home. And, this is just not a good look on Michigan State at all. Last week you had a prime opportunity to really make yourself look great with a win on the road at Washington, and you kind of fumbled with that. I don't really know what went wrong in this game, because I watched the highlights and I'm just like, what's going on? But I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it was a little bit of a disaster. And what really concerns me is the team at Washington State concerns me, but it's a topic of discussion. Is right now, after 4 weeks, this team is 2-2. Last year under Tucker's, I believe it was his first year or so coaching them, they went 11-2. So it's like, if they really want to resemble last year, they have to win out. And I don't really see that happening at this rate, because they have a lot of challenging teams in the Big Ten East Gauntlet that are going to get them. But, kind of have that describe that, because, like, they were ranked. They're probably not going to be ranked anymore. So they might be ranked like where Texas A&M is. But, it's just crazy how college football can work.
Yeah. Every week is a different game. Like, looking at the stats and stuff, Michigan State couldn't get nothing going on offense. 2 interceptions, couldn't run the ball, couldn't pass the ball. And, hey, hats off to Minnesota. They're 4-0 right now. And Michigan State 2-2. It's nice to see some of these teams that's been down for a couple of years, like Minnesota. They're starting to pick it up, start playing some good ball.
Oh yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
starting to really pay attention to the Minnesota team because it's
yeah,
under a month until the whiteout game, and Penn State faces Minnesota in the whiteout game, so that's going to be an interesting matchup, in to say the least. I believe that Michigan goes to Iowa next week, so that's going to be a very interesting matchup to say the least. But I think it showed that hey, Maryland is just they're not a pullover team and stuff like that. But now looking at other games on the docket, Ohio State just absolutely dread past Wisconsin. It wasn't really even close. I know that Notre Dame kind of rebounded a little against North Carolina and stuff. But another game that was very interesting, Wake Forest versus Clemson. I've watched the highlights of that game, and I must say, I think this goes to show that Clemson's not the only team in that conference right now that could just dominate. Like other schools are starting to take notice. They're starting to really do what they need to do, and that's what makes it good. I mean, heck, last year Kenneth Walker III, who transferred to Michigan State last year for one of his final seasons in college football, he was from Wake Forest. So, you know, they have a talented program down there, just to say the least.
yeah.
But it's crazy how close it was. Clemson only won by like 5 points. But I guess it's also surprising because people thought Clemson would be back to its dominance. But it's tough. What are your thoughts on that, LaMarr?
I mean, Clemson 51-45. I mean, they was on the road against a ranked team. I mean, Wake Forest showed up. I didn't expect it to be that close, but I did expect Wake Forest to compete. The crowd is all pumped up, and that played the factor. And look at Alabama and Texas. It was the last week or 2 weeks ago when everybody thought Alabama was just gonna roll Texas over, but Texas had that momentum from the fans, and they almost won the game.
See, that's what I like about some of these smaller games is that's why they're played on paper. Oh yeah, they beat them, but in real life, it's like, yeah, maybe they actually won't beat them, and that's what I love. That's what I love about the game of college football. It's very exciting Saturdays, for right now, and it's just right now. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that a couple teams on where they're at. You didn't expect Notre Dame to have two losses by now, but they do. And one of them is very surprising, but it also, it doesn't surprise me that Michigan and Ohio State are dominating early as well as Penn State is, but you ultimately know that some cross matchups are going to come in. I think that Penn State's well prepared for what's to come, because they've already been on the road at Purdue, on the road at Auburn, and those are two tough environments to play in, to say the least. It's the first time a Big Ten team went down to Auburn or relatively any team in the SEC for that matter. So I think that that's a huge statement, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done and that will get done. But overall, I think you're starting to see who's being prepared now versus who isn't. But I will say this, shocks me that's still ranked is Texas A&M, and here's the reason why. Losing to App State hurts, but then you beat Miami. I get that, but did you just beat them to just say, okay, I got back into the win column versus actually beat them as if like, yes, we're supposed to beat Miami. So it is what it is, but
I
now a
mean,
lot
they
of fans
beat.
are.
I mean, they beat number 10 Texas at Arkansas yesterday, when they should be ranked. So they going, but they came in the game ranked 23. They beat the 10th ranked team. They're gonna move up, probably in the top 15, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about college football because any given week your team can make the biggest jump possible,
Yeah.
besides certain teams. But I mean, hey, we're starting getting into the fun part because now a lot of conference plays starting to come together and stuff. And you're going to see some of those matchups. I think that some things last season have really ticked Penn State off to where they want to have a better season and they probably should. And now it's going to start to get into the heart of the schedule. But this is where you get to find out, how deep are you? How much talent do you have? But more importantly, how is your development of all this coming along? Because that's what matters the most is the development of everything. But I do know that there are a couple good games coming up this week, but we'll say that for next week. But before we go, was there a game that stood out to you in any shape, way, or form? Because I know we went over a couple games, but did it's like allow me to say this? Did you have a certain perspective on the game going in that actually totally just got thrown out the window based off the performance in that game?
Not really, but I really like watching the Oregon and Washington State game. Washington State, they let Oregon off the hook. They had them, man. They gave up. They was leading. They gave up 29 points in the fourth quarter and lost 44-41. But Washington State looks like they're gotten a lot better, so they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the Pac-12. Look like this year, they could have won that game. They could have won that game. They would have been ranked this week. But let's see if they. But Washington State, Oregon State, all teams that have been at the lower bottom of the Pac-12 are starting to be competitive, and that's good to see.
Totally. Now, I do know that some other MLB news was that David Price recently announced that he was going to retire after this season. What a well-deserved honor, I guess. I know he's been one of the most during his prime and stuff. He was one of the most feared pitchers. He had some really good stuff, and he played on some very valuable teams. He's currently in the Dodgers bullpen. But that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. For LaMarr Fields, I'm your host, Tom Johnston. We'll catch you on the next one.